what makes sense for us to go into next is menu pricing. So National Restaurant Association shared a menu pricing update on October 24th. We didn't get into this. There's been a lot of news going on. Felt topical for right now. So this is about a month ago. So they do this research on menu prices, and they shared that menu price growth slowed in September following solid gains this year. So, Justin, if you remember, we covered a couple months ago menu prices rising, operators feeling that they need to raise their menu pricing, and some operators raising prices, but not even raising them enough to cover the cost. And this was something that happened during when tariffs were first implemented. This was like April. There was like a stat where even if like menu pricing increased however much the restaurant operators were like increasing them, they still wouldn't be as profitable as they were like 2 years ago. So like these margins keep getting thinner. So I think what restaurant operators are seeing now though is that customers are reacting really poorly to the rise in menu pricing, which is obviously very unfortunate. So they say that consumer prices rose 0.3% in September. It's a slight moderation from 0.4% in August and marginally better than expected. It was driven by a 1.5% rise in energy costs, with gasoline prices up 4.1%, and then food prices edged up 0.2% on menus overall. And so what I found interesting is that actually we've talked about how a consumer might not go to a restaurant, but they might splurge in grocery. But what they find here is while menu prices in restaurants edged up just 0.1% in September, which is the slowest monthly increase, Justin, since February of 2024, grocery prices have risen 3.7% since September 2024, down from 3.9% in August. So this increase in grocery pricing is actually what's affecting consumers. Now, the unfortunate reality of this is these trends won't be felt or they probably won't be noticed for a while. So actually, it's kind of flipped where in the beginning of the year, grocery items were probably more affordable. And now it's the opposite. Restaurant prices aren't rising as much, but grocery prices are. So there's just like this influx. And one other report, the Restaurant Performance Index that I'll share, this is the monthly index that tracks restaurants. A little bit concerning. Restaurant Performance Index declined 0.4% in September. Basically, the decline was due to dampened current situation indicators. And they say although restaurant operators posted a modest net increase in same-store sales in September, they reported negative customer traffic for the 8th consecutive month. They're also saying that 34% of operators only expect higher sales in the next 6 months. And they also said here that most restaurant operators have an uncertain outlook for the sales and economy. 46% of operators expect their sales to remain flat, and 40% of operators reported that their sales were down. Only 11% said they expect economic conditions to improve in 6 months. So I think what we've seen here, my take, you let me know, is menu prices rose. The grocery prices did not follow. So grocery was a more cheap alternative. You then have restaurant prices getting so high that like now there's like these YouTube videos and whatnot. And so now it's just like more expensive to eat out than ever before. Now though, you're going to see that like restaurant pricing is probably going to fall back to, or not fall, but like grocery will catch up and there might be some balance. But right now it's very hard for restaurants due to this perception that they don't offer the value they once did. So your thoughts on this data and what you think happens moving forward?
There's some fascinating psychology information on like personal finance, if you've ever dug into that, where it's not necessarily how much you're making, how you feel about your financial standing is very much so correlated to how you compare to your neighbor, or how you compare to your coworker, or how you compare to your spouse, or whatever it happens to be, your friend from college. And so as we start to see all of these pressures being put on different sectors of the industry, you highlighted grocery, we've talked about restaurants, we talked about fast casual restaurants and fine dining restaurants and cooking at home. And so it's almost like exactly how you're wording it. Each of these need to kind of like relative to one another catch up so that we get to this place where grocery seems quote unquote more affordable because I'm seeing all these videos on Instagram of how easy it is to make restaurant quality food at home. And I compare that to the pricing that I see at a restaurant nearby me that has just jacked up their prices, quote unquote, to how I'm perceiving it. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is such a good deal. Like I should just stay at home. And then, all of a sudden we see something swing from the consumer pricing index where grocery prices go up. And now all of a sudden you look at your grocery bill at the end of the month and you're like, was it that much cheaper? And then now you're second guessing, you're questioning, because now it's not that it's almost like everything just actually accuratized out, so to speak. And so seeing all of this kind of like go over time, I think will hopefully serve as a forcing function for operators who are like stressed about raising their prices because they don't want to be the first mover. I think that's what you'll often see. It's not that I don't think that I need to raise my prices. I'm seeing it in the numbers that I need to raise my prices, but how I'm going to be perceived compared to the restaurant down the street is going to be really, really hard. And so it's almost like you want to be the last mover to this stuff. So you seem as the quote unquote good guy who wasn't greedy, quote unquote. And so all of this is just really fascinating to watch. And again, like the more we start to see it normalized, I think we will see more people do it. And again, it sucks for the consumer who isn't making any more money on a monthly basis.
Accurate assessment. We'll get into that in a minute. One thing I did find interesting, and this is the psychology piece of this. Despite all of this is the last thing in the restaurant report. A majority of restaurant operators are still planning for capital spending in the coming months. 51% of operators said that they plan to make a capital expenditure for equipment expansion or remodeling during the next 6 months. This is the 6th consecutive month in which a majority of operators reported plans for capital spending. Very interesting. It's interesting to just like, even though we're not doing well, they're still investing in their business. One thing to piggyback off this before we get into the Chipotle Sweetgreen topic is Food and Wine put out an article on November 14th. And it was titled "The Menu Items That Keep Getting More Expensive and the Surprising One That Isn't." And so everyone's kind of agreeing. They're saying this as well, that after months of sharp increases, inflation of menu prices appears to be steadying. So November 2025, we're finally seeing menu prices kind of steady off, whether it be demand from the consumer or just overall like lower costs in some sectors. What they say is they give the example of the burger. Median price of restaurant burgers hits $14.53 in October, an increase of 3.2% compared to last year. Cold brew has a current median cost of $5.53 per serving, while regular coffee sits at $3.57. And they share that chicken wings are the only things that really haven't gone up. But they do cite kind of this idea of sticker shock and making lower cost items. And again, Food and Wine is also touting the BOGO versus the discount narrative. So I think all that to say is like menu pricing is starting to steady off. If you are a consumer, maybe there is light at the end of the tunnel, but there's a lot more to go for us to see on this. Justin, we'll go into Sweetgreen and we'll go into Chipotle. So this idea of the slop bowl, Justin shared this term with me. We did a video on it. And so now we are talking about fast casual. And there's been, like I said before, many viral videos on why Chipotle is failing, Sweetgreen is failing, Tava's failing. And I wanted to start with an article as for the story is the Food Dive. They shared January 27, 2025. They said 2025 could be fast casual's year again. And so fast casual had this boom from the late 2010s into the early 2020s. And so they said that long-term trends in consumer preference have put fast casual chains in a position to leverage price sensitivity, digital touchpoints, and an appetite for human connection. And so basically what happened is they were predicting that because of prices that were high, economy that was kind of teetering, fast casual was going to come out on top because of their leverage and their price point. What happened is the exact opposite. The perception of a Sweetgreen or a Chipotle is you don't give me enough. The value is low. I've read comments on the YouTube channel. Quality isn't there. They're just not as good. I can make this better at home. And so you have two stories today. You have the first one from Nation's Restaurant News. Sweetgreen's 9.5% same-store sales decline highlights value perception issues. They reported a steep sales and profit decline for the third quarter ending in September 28th. Thursday's earnings call, they acknowledge that they're grappling with a value perception problem. The stock has dropped 8% this week and has declined nearly 90% in value since the company went public 4 years ago. It's the consumer spending down across restaurants. Sweetgreen is battling the perception that it primarily sells overpriced salads, which typically cost $14 to $16, which again isn't that bad. I mean, in all things considered, for a meal, a $14 to $16 salad full of items like that, like protein, like it's not that bad. So they go on in this article to just basically say that the 25 to 35-year-old demographic is just being hollowed out. The same thing with this Chipotle article on the Daily Upside. They're basically saying that student loans and slow wage growth are biting into the people our age, 25 to 35, where it's like there's not as much income. There's not as much free income anymore for us to be able to go out and spend like we did. Like I used to go to Chipotle every day when I was like 19 years old. I don't do that anymore. And so shares on Sweetgreen, shares on Chipotle, shares on Cava have all fallen. And there's just a lot of evidence that fast casual is kind of collapsing right now. So I have some ideas, but I just wanted to maybe get your thoughts first. I went a little bit long on that. What are your thoughts on this idea of fast casual collapsing, specifically those three, Sweetgreen, Cava, and Chipotle?
I think it's proximity bias, man. Like I think it's the closeness by which we can remember what you're talking about, the bowl being $8, and you feel like it's over and above value for what you're getting. And from a time saving perspective, it's you don't have to cook, you don't have to clean up. It's relatively fast, like you get to see it kind of like prepared in front of you. You get to modify in the ways that you want to. It's like they ticked a lot of boxes. And the growth of Chipotle and the way that, they were able to build that company was very much so blueprint for so many other people who wanted to kind of like get in the game with their version. You hear this in the way that people would talk about their business, the Chipotle of blank. I think some of the innovations, quote unquote, if you're even going to call it that, with what we've seen from a product perspective, a menu offering maybe perspective from Chipotle is like, if anything, Chipotle is downsized what they're offering. Like they're maybe offering a couple of extra protein options, but that's oftentimes because that's what the consumer is telling them. It's like, I don't need a bunch of different, ways to almost Taco Bell, like arrange the same ingredients into a different service format. I want my bowl, I want my salad, I want my burrito. And I just want to know that, like, again, talking about value, the portion sizes are going to be, like in line with what my expectations are. And then just trying to talk about another thing that I saw across my feed this week. Sweetgreen is doing this like 100-gram of protein bowl. They're like protein max yourself. And it was met with this kind of like, oh my God, applauding Sweetgreen for, like you're actually trying to quote unquote deliver value to the person who is, maybe a little bit more nutritionally minded or fitness oriented. But then you also had a bunch of people in the comments from what I was seeing saying, like you can make rice and ground beef at home for, like a drastic reduction in the price of this, because once you get up to that, level of protein in a bowl, it's something like after delivery fees and tax and tip, it's like it's a $35. Do you know what I mean? Like
just getting it in stores is a $21 bowl.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that I think is also something from an innovation perspective that, again, it is a result of the demand being so high during COVID. And then also, I'll just speak locally. I have a couple of other local stories that I want to touch on later in the episode here, is like delivery drivers in Seattle get paid $28 an hour, guaranteed, regardless of, like tip amount or number of orders that they're doing. And so all of these things have made these businesses in DoorDash and Uber Eats and all of these companies almost like Frankenstein. Like there's all these like appendages on them because they have the success and the growth that they had from the pandemic. And then they have these other implications that have come on from, drivers and workers demanding more, cities putting increased regulations on, restaurant prices going up. And so they're very much so in this like weird place where if you've logged into any of these delivery apps in recent memory, you have things like, I can weirdly like go in person to a restaurant in DoorDash and check in the DoorDash app and say I'm dining in person, but I'm getting quote unquote perks through DoorDash, but then I'm also paying a subscription fee to DoorDash. It's like, so again, like confusing for the consumer. And again, like it makes it seem like when you're seeing the stock price go up or people talking about valuations on some of these companies that these businesses are quote unquote killing it. But I think it has become so messy and clunky that, again, I'm going to cover a story that maybe provides an alternative to some of these things. But I think all of it is, you can't have, and this is maybe painting with a broad brush, but can you have Sweetgreen and Chipotle without DoorDash? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it is a very symbiotic relationship that they have. And I think that when we're looking at some of these, I saw a tweet the other day that was like, Is your burrito bowl actually $35, or did you pay to have a private driver for it, and that's the reason that it's that expensive, right? Like you're thinking that it is this crazy exorbitant lunch that you just ordered for yourself, but what you're actually paying for is the speed and the convenience and all of these other steps that you could cut out for yourself in the context of your day. And if you don't look at your day in that way, talking about income and all of these sorts of things, it's going to seem like it's crazy expensive, and then that's going to not negatively affect your perception of DoorDash. You're going to put that onus on Sweetgreen.
Yeah, no, I want to just say one thing about just the American consumer in general. I think that there's a lot of macro things, wage growth or the lack thereof of wage growth, affect the American consumer. I also just think like we have been over the last 40 years, 30 years in an era of really cheap food being cheaper probably than it should be. And this isn't like some classes like we need everything homemade and you all should be paying more, but it's just the reality that like fast food really gutted, I think, any perception of how expensive food should probably be. And so now you get to this point where costs are high, labor costs are high. Just operating a restaurant is so much more expensive now. You're not going to see this food be as cheap. But because we've operated so long in a system that valued making the cheapest product possible at the end of the day, the American diner has, I think they've just kind of associated cheapness with food. And food access should be cheap. It should be, you should have access to food. What I'm saying here though is like menu construction, menu pricing has at some points been artificially deflated, and that has in general harmed the consumer and harmed what they're able to attain. So when you get something like pricing at Chipotle or Sweetgreen doubling, that's probably where it always should have been. But because of how our food system has been set up for so long, it just feels like everything's breaking right now, and the price is being paid by the consumer in the end. So I really don't know where it goes from here. I don't see it ever going back down too much. But food's going to get more expensive. You have all these different conditions, and when we live in a country that relies so heavily, not only on our food supply, but international food supplies, and with everything going on in the world, I just don't see a world where things get too much better on a pricing front. I can see them stabilizing, but I don't see us going back because everything now is just a higher cost. So that's kind of my last thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, just really quick on that. If we were to maybe chart this out, what I'm hoping that we see in the future is that we've had this unfortunate effect of like prices being like suppressed, or like people have been fearful to raise prices for some of this backlash stuff. And now that they've been made, it's almost like if we were to visualize this, it was a stair step up. Again, talking about previous years, and I'm sure if we actually charted this out, the chart would look different. But mentally, I think how people are perceiving some of this is what I want to ideally see is that it's a stair step up. So your burrito bowl was $8 and now it's $13. It feels like a big step up. And now it will be a slow ramp, right? So like people learn from the mistakes is how I want to see this going forward. And you are being more cost conscious. You are making sure that if you're seeing your costs go up, those reflect. And that, again, if you're going to keep prices low, you do some of the things that we talk about this show and adding value in other ways.